Yesterday we talked about how to conduct a line reflection and the rules of reflecting over the x and the y axis. Today we're going to look at how to reflect over lines that are not the x and y axis. Things like the line y equals x, which resembles this diagonal line right here. As you can see, it's still a reflection. It still flips over the line. If this was green paint and you folded it over the line of symmetry, you'd end up with another green T right here. The shape will still remain the same, but it will flip over the line that we're looking at. If you get out your note sheet, we're going to start with reflecting over the line y equals x. So I already did the reflection for you, and what I want us to talk about right now is how do the coordinates change? So we're going to compare A to A prime, B to B prime, and C to C prime. Let's start off with A. So we're going to start at the origin. We are going to walk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Negative 7. And then climb 1, 2, 3, 4. So coordinate A is at negative 7, positive 4. Now let's compare that to its image, to A prime. Start at the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we get the coordinate 4, negative 7. Moving on to B. B is the coordinate negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. B prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 1, negative 2. And C is at negative 2, positive 2, while C prime is at 2, negative 2. Now, if you take a second to look at the coordinates, hopefully you'll see a pattern. This is, of course, the line y equals x. That is the line that we reflected over. Hopefully everybody remembers that a standard form of a linear equation is y equals mx plus b. Notice that this equation starts at 0, and then the slope is 1, so we went up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1. Now, it's not as easy to just count to the line and then count away from the line like it is with a vertical and a horizontal line. The diagonal line, you have to know the rule. So hopefully at this point you've been able to come up with it. What happens is that the numbers stay the same, but all that they do is they flip around. The x becomes the y, and the y becomes an x. So like, for example, look at A. It went from negative 7, 4 to 4, negative 7. The x and the y switched. So that's the rule you have to remember today. So again, we do our reflection notation with a lowercase r, and you're going to take whatever x and y you have, and if you're instructed to reflect over the line y equals x, you're just going to switch the order of your coordinate. So quickly, for an example, if I gave you the coordinate 8, negative 2 and told you to reflect it over the line y equals x, your new coordinate would be negative 2, positive 8. Now we're going to use that rule coming up when we have to do our own reflection. So here we go. We're going to reflect over the line y equals x. Notice that there is absolutely nothing on your paper. You're not only expected to plot your object, but also graph the line. So using your slope-intercept form, this should not be a problem. Remember that you can always put the 1 for the coefficient. 1 is always assumed, but it's still there. And you can always add the plus 0 for your y-intercept if that helps you out. So it's up to you. You could start by graphing the line y equals x, or you can start by graphing your coordinates. I'm going to start by graphing my coordinates. Be careful on this piece of graph paper. It's not numbered for you. If you need to, you're going to come in and you're going to label them, but I'm going to leave them as is. Here's my origin, where the x and the y axis intersect. So that's always where you're starting. So now graph your points. 4, negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you know that you do not need the numbers. You're just going to count as you go. Negative as a y value means go down. Start back at the origin. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Negative 2 means fall 2. Careful whenever you have a coordinate with a 0 in it. You always walk before you climb or fall. Start at the origin, count to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then do not go up or down at all. There's your value for C. Now make sure you have a straight edge of some sort. Need a straight edge when you're drawing your shapes. All right, so there's my triangle with vertices A, B, C. Now I need to come over here and graph my line of reflection, which again is this y equals x. I'm going to start at 0. Slope tells you how to move. Slope is 1 over 1. Y-intercept is 0. Positive means go up, and you always run to the right. Up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. And you're just going to continue moving along your graph paper. Remember that we always graph a line from one corner of our graph paper to the other. We fit as many coordinates as we can. Now, when you draw your line of reflection, please use a dotted line. This is just a reference line. So we definitely want to use it dotted. You don't draw a solid one. This is just our reference line. And don't forget how important it is to always label. If you're putting something on your graph, you need to label it. All right, so here's my original object. Here's my line of reflection. You're imagining it as if this was created with black paint, and then you're going to fold it over this line. So have an idea of where it should show up. If you were reflecting it, this is in the 4th quadrant. If I were to fold it over the line y equals x, it should end up somewhere right along here. All right, we're not sure where. We can't just count. It's not as easy because we'd have to go diagonally. Don't do that. You need to know your rule. It's very easy, but you need to make sense of it. Y equals x is the same as x equals y. It's interchangeable. So again, your rule for when you're reflecting over the x and y, when you're reflecting over the y equals x, is to just switch your x and your y. You're just going to switch them around. So what is A prime going to be? It's going to go from 4, -6 to -6, 4. B prime is going to go from 8, -2 to -2, 8. And C prime is going to go from 9, 0 to 0, 9. It's very simple, but it's a rule you have got to memorize. It is up to you. You cannot count from here to here. It's not going to work. Okay, that's only for vertical and horizontal lines. Diagonal lines, you have to know your rule. And now it's really easy, but be careful when you're graphing. So A prime is -6, 4. That means start at the origin, walk 6 to the left into the negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Be very careful with graphs that don't have the numbers on them. -2, 8. -2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 0, 9. Careful with those zeros. 0 in the x value says do not go left or right at all. And then climb up 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's my C prime. I'm going to be very careful when I'm connecting the vertices. I know those letters are close to each other. Be careful. And you get your triangle. Now, notice that I forgot my prime. That's a big deal. So I'm going to just add my prime on the B. So take a quick look at your graph. Make sure that it's correct. And then make sure that the shape stayed the same. It's very important to remember that reflections and your translations, what we did on the first day, the shapes remain the same. Do not get a different shape. If something ended up with a different size for a side length, something went wrong, and you're just going to fix your coordinates. You're going to check them out really quick and make sure that something did not go wrong. So now I'm all set. I've got everything labeled. My vertices are labeled. My line of reflection is labeled, and I remembered my primes on my image. So then you're all set, and you can move on to the next problem. This is an example of reflecting over the line x equals 1. So hopefully you remember what the slope is of an x equals graph. Remember our slope face? The horizontal line had a slope of 0, and the vertical line had an undefined slope. Hopefully you remember that an x equals graph is going to look like a vertical line. It's going to be a perfectly vertical line at whatever x value they give you. The reason why, it's not in standard y equals mx plus b form. A slope doesn't exist because it's considered undefined. So you go along the x-axis, you find x equals 1, this guy right here. And this is going to be our line of reflection. So you always need to draw your line of reflection with a dotted line. Please do not forget to label it. All right, I highly recommend that you go outside of the graph a little bit to draw attention to the separation between your line of reflection and the y-axis. That's a very common mistake to get the two confused, so please be careful when they're close to each other like this. Okay, so now let's graph our points. And again, be careful. This line is your line of reflection. You're still starting at the origin when you go to graph your points. 2, 4 means go over 2. 1, 2, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your A. B is 6, negative 9. Again, back to the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then all the way down to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's your B. C is at 2, negative 5, back to the origin. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're dealing with a triangle again. We're going to use our straight edge. Doesn't have to be a ruler, but it does need to be a straight edge. And we have our triangle right there. Now there's no rule for this. It's not a diagonal line, so counting will work, but make sure you're counting to the correct line. Your reflection line is this dotted line. That's why I do not want it solid. You're going to get it confused with your axis line. This is the line of reflection. You're going to try your best to forget that the y-axis is even there. It does not serve a purpose right now. Put your pen on A, count to your line of reflection. From A to my line of reflection is 1. So then you count 1 away. Here's A prime. B, count to your line of reflection. That's the dotted line right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now put your pen on C. That's the last one we've got to do. It's only 1 away, so we're only going to count 1 away. This is why it's so important to be neat and organized during a reflection. All right, the dots, often the vertices end up close together. It can get a little messy. You can get confused over which is your line of reflection and which is your axes. All right, so very, very important. Be very careful. Make sure everything is labeled. It will make your life a lot easier. Some of us were being a little lazy and forgetting to do our labels. So now image is the second picture on your graph paper. It's whatever you did to reflect. And we're just going to label it. So A prime. We did not walk left or right at all and climbed up 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the coordinate 0, 4. B prime is start at 0, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Negative 4, negative 9. And C prime is at 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. And that's it for today's lesson. You need to be very cautious when you're drawing your lines of best fit, when they're not as simple as reflecting over the x and the y axis. Make sure you remember your rule for reflecting over the y equals x, and we'll finish this up in class tomorrow. If you have any questions, please let me know.